we have the full environment here, and then it's a nice, happy, healthy environment. We have a variety of different species. They're spread out. There's enough distance and numbers that they're not competing for resources. And then people come along. And what are some of the changes we see in the environment if comparing this slide to this slide? What has changed with the introduction of humans? I call on Harry.
One more species is added and one tree is cut down.
Yeah. So we've taken some of the space for the people, our Homo sapiens species, but also kind of look at what happens to the distribution of the animals. We don't really lose animals by removing a couple of trees. They just kind of get shifted, don't they? And so now you have the same number of animals inside of a smaller number or a smaller space. And as one might imagine, the animals don't like that because they need a certain amount of space to be happy and healthy. And so when you start putting all of these animals together in a tighter space, it starts stressing them out. They're now competing for shelter. They're competing for food resources. There can be diseases more easily transmissible because they're in closer proximity to each other. And if people keep doing what they're doing, well, the problem becomes a bit exacerbated. So what do we notice is difference between this picture here and this picture here?
Oof.
Elliot says oof. Elliot, why oof?
Because over half the trees are gone. All the animals are crammed into one tiny space.
Mm-hmm.
And there are more people.
There's more people, but also look at the distribution of animals relative to the people. In this slide here, people are kind of isolated away from the animals, but then you get this. And so now you have bats and birds and foxes and rats becoming within close proximity of the people, which again, as we discussed with zoonotic diseases, can increase the rate of transmission. Alternatively, having all of the different species crammed in a very tight space here can have certain issues. For starters, we might start losing individuals within a population, or we might lose the population in general. So looking at this slide, let's pretend that either due to death or relocation that we've run out of birds in this environment. How does this picture now compare to this picture? So this is the old picture. We've taken birds out of the picture. And what has changed? So I'll show you guys one more time. This is the old picture. This is a new picture.
All
What
of
has
the
changed
birds
between
have
the
been
two?
replaced by mice.
So Elliot says there's more mice. Macy?
Kyle, I don't understand. Can you go back a bit?
Yeah.
Can you re-say what you were saying about that?
Yeah, so let's pretend that now that the animals are in a much smaller confined space, that either due to death or relocation, we start losing all the birds in the environment. So this is the picture where all the birds were here.
Mm-hmm.
How does this picture compare to this picture where we have now lost all the birds and some time has been allowed to pass?
There are less trees and more mice.
Yeah.
Why would they be in a smaller space?
So they're in a smaller space because the humans are coming in and let's say they're tearing down the trees. But you are correct. So the birds are gone. There are more mice. Why are there more mice?
Because the birds eat the mice,
Yeah,
and
presumably.
if there's no birds to eat them, there are more mice.
Yeah, there's more mice. There's also more foxes. Did anybody notice that? We have an extra little fox right here. So the fox and the birds were competing for a food resource. There's no birds. There's more mice. There's more mice. There's more foxes, which again forces more stress on the foxes. Bats start impeding on the people. And yeah, Macy also noticed there's a tree absent here. Why might a tree be absent as a result of the birds leaving?
Well, I think the birds leaving is a result of the lack of trees.
Okay, that's possible. They're certainly leaving. But what do birds eat? So birds of prey will eat meat, but what does, for example, a more traditional bird eat?
Worms.
Worms?
What's it called? Berries and stuff.
Berries and stuff. And so berries and fruits are methods of plants spreading their seed. They entice animals to eat the fruits and then carry the seeds far away. So if you take out the birds from the picture that are eating those berries and carrying those seeds, well, you don't spread trees. And so the trees start dying because trees die, but they're not reproducing or replicating at a rate they used to. So we start losing that. And so we went over the 5 changes, talked about there's no birds, less trees, mice, and more animals in the human areas because they're just being pushed out of their natural territory. And this is something that's going on right now in the Amazon rainforest, where at least in Brazil, there's mass deforestation going on as they're clearing out the land for farmland. And so this exact scenario is something we're seeing, at least in the real world, but has also occurred in different agricultural communities, even in the United States, where they clear out farmland and then, what we qualify as quote unquote vermin are starting to eat away at our food production.